This is SCOREGolf, the voice of Canadian golf. SCOREGolf is powered by Volkswagen, from one good drive to another. And brought to you by RBC, proud sponsor of the RBC Canadian Open. Now, here's your host, Bob Weeks.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to SCOREGolf TV. And today is a very special edition of SCOREGolf TV. Yes, we are going to count down the best public courses in the country. Now, every other year at SCOREGolf, we do a ranking of the top 100 courses. That includes private courses, resort courses, everything. And the one comment we hear from viewers and from readers is, why would you list courses we can't play? Well, we heard you, and so now we're doing a list of just public courses, just facilities where you can walk in, plunk your money down on the counter and play. We've done it a little differently than our normal top 100. We've done it by region. And you're going to see some courses on there that are very familiar to you, some that'll be a little bit surprising, and some that you may never have even heard of. But they're all great courses, and they're all ones where you can play. To help us understand how we came to the ranking and how we came to the final results, here's SCOREGolf's Jason Logan, the master of the lists.
Thanks, Bob. I am standing on the third tee deck of the Hoot course at Osprey Valley, which is a 54-hole complex in Caledon, Ontario, just about 45 minutes north of downtown Toronto. We'll let you know why we've chosen this location a little bit later in the show. So how do these rankings work? Well, SCOREGolf consults a panel made up of 114 people, most of whom are just public players who get across the country at their own expense and just love playing golf and really have an appreciation for golf course architecture. There's 9 categories that the golf courses are rated upon, each of which carries a different percentage based upon what we think is most important for a public golf course. As you can see, fun carries the most weighting because really, what more could a public golf course offer than a place to have a lot of fun? Raters go in, they put in their marks, and then a number out of 10 is spit out. Then an overall number based on the number of raters who went in and gave that course a score is arrived at. Just one more little mathematical hiccup that I got to tell you about. A course that has, say, 35 people rate it will get a slight advantage over a course that only has 10 or 12. The minimum, by the way, is 10. Then we arrive at the numbers and we break it down. And this year we've done it province by province because Canada deserves to have a province by province rating. Now, one thing I also want to mention, in addition to these ratings that you'll get in the SCOREGolf magazine on newsstand shortly, are golfers' guides for across the country. This is more than just a rating book. This is a full devotion to public golf. You'll get hidden gems that aren't going to make the top 15 or top 20. You'll get best valued courses. You'll get places to stay, places to eat, even highways to travel, because we want you to find out everything you need to know about public golf when you pick up this magazine.
Well, this year's RBC Canadian Open was a huge success, and it was, of course, in British Columbia. That's not a big surprise because BC is a golf-crazy province. There are great golf courses on both sides of the mountains and, of course, on Vancouver Island. Let's count down the best public facilities in British Columbia. At number 1, it's the Tom McBroom-designed Tobiano near Kamloops. Number 2 is Grey Wolf, a beautiful course featuring the most scenic golf hole in Canada, number 6, the Cliffhanger. At number 3, it's Predator Ridge, the Ridge Course. Number 4, we go to Vancouver Island, it's Bear Mountain, the Mountain Course. At number 5, it's Shadow Whistler. At number 6, we stay in Whistler for Big Sky. At number 7, it's the Jack Nicklaus designed Nicklaus North, also in Whistler. In 8th place is Eagle Ranch. At number 9, it's Predator Ridge, the other one this time, the Predator Course. Number 10, back out to Vancouver Island for Olympic View. Number 11 is Fairview Mountain. At 12, it's the Radium Resort Springs Course. In 13th spot, it's Gallagher's Canyon. Number 14 in Coquitlam is Westwood Plateau. And in 15th place in Kelowna, it's Harvest. Let's go to Jason Logan and Robert Thompson to break down the list.
I'm joined now by Robert Thompson, senior writer at SCOREGolf magazine and a man who has played 98 of the top 100 golf courses on ScoreGolf's top 100 ranking, he just told me, so you know he's got a lot of credibility. But Robert, we're here to talk about public golf courses, and we're starting with British Columbia. And I want to ask you, when you think about public golf in BC, immediately what comes to mind?
Well, it's really about geography there. You get the golf courses in Whistler, in the mountains, but largely flatter. And, recently the explosion in golf in the province has been in the interior. Courses like Grey Wolf and Tobiano and Predator Ridge, which are all sort of in mountainous settings with, some really interesting topography and really interesting locations.
Well, let's expand on that, because if you look at the ranking, the interior of BC is well represented off the top, as you mentioned, with Tobiano, which is a recent design, Grey Wolf, which I know you really like, one of Doug Carrick's best, and then Carrick's new course at Predator Ridge. Those three courses give me a sense of what golfers can expect if they go to play there.
Well, Tobiano is unique I've never seen anything quite like it anywhere else in the world. You're looking on a lake, but you're also in these kind of badlands with these wild landforms and big forest carries. Not an easy golf course by any stretch of the imagination. Perhaps a little more gentle is the new Predator course, which Doug Carrick reworked 9 holes from an existing golf course, added a bunch, and has come up with something I think is really quite spectacular. And Grey Wolf is probably one of the most underrated golf courses in the country. You have a great mountain setting, you have tons of elevation, wide fairways, it's very playable, and so really I found it a blast to play.
Well, BC went through a bit of a public course explosion in recent times, and one of the things we're hearing about now is some of these resort components are struggling a little bit financially. Bring us up to date on what's happening there.
Well, Tobiano and Bear Mountain have both gone into receivership, but it's really not about the golf courses in those instances, it's about the real estate that they were based on. So what you have, I just came back from Tobiano recently, and you wouldn't notice anything different from past years. You're still getting the same level of service, the same great golf. Nothing has really changed.
The courses we've talked about so far are fairly expensive. Some of them you can play for under $100 at the right time, but most of the times you will play over $100. There are courses on the BC ranking that are very good value though. What stands out for you?
Well, I like a couple of the Kelowna golf courses. A Graham Cook design in Harvest, which is, as you might guess, sort of routed through an orchard. You can play it for less than $100. And Gallagher Canyon, which has been a long-time favorite in the same area. Once again, it comes in under $100. You can't do much better than that.
Coming up after the break, we'll talk with Stephen Ames. Next up, we want to take a look at the best public facilities in Alberta, and there are some dandy ones out there. Of course, some of those great ones up in the mountains and some beautiful ones down near the border as well. But before we do that, let's spend a minute meeting Alberta's most famous golfer.
Golf Gives Back. Brought to you by RBC.
Stephen Ames has played in over 330 PGA Tour events and amassed nearly $20 million in winnings. As proud as he may be of his play on the tour, it's his charity off the course, the Stephen Ames Cup, that is one of his proudest achievements.
It brings a big smile to my face, obviously. You think about the fact that you have been a role model for some of these kids, and the fact that I've been able to go back, or being able to give back to the kids in that respect, who are those who are trying to aspire to be a professional golfer. But I think it's just the fact that they get an opportunity of seeing the country that I live in, which we all know is a beautiful country, and the same for the Canadian kids when they have an opportunity to go home to a different culture and seeing how we used to live, or I used to live, should I say. And it's an eye-opener for them. And not many kids, as I say, in the world do get to see different cultures, because they're very much, let's just say, excluded from the fact that they can't afford it, or the fact that parents don't think it's necessary for them to go and travel and see the rest of the world.
RBC is a proud partner of Stephen Ames, and one that Stephen has high praises for.
RBC is getting the mileage that they needed down in Trinidad, where they've just bought RBTT out, and now the RBC name is out there now. I think they've gone about it the correct way on the PGA Tour, by having 9 ambassadors, as we say, both playing Europe, some playing the States, and I think if we look at it overall, RBC is obviously trying to get into the market in the States, and a wonderful role by taking all those extra players on board as ambassadors, and also the fact of now being the Hilton Head sponsor. So I think they're going in the right direction.
At 47 years of age, Ames is in the twilight of his PGA Tour career, but that doesn't mean he's lost any drive to win. In fact, there's only one way he described his level of interest playing on the tour.
Still very high. very, very high. I think it's obvious by the fact that I'm on the range, hitting 6 and 9 bags of balls every day with Sean, and even when I go home, it's the same thing. I'm trying to get it and find it. It hasn't been the best of years for me, but everything's a learning curve, and I've taken a lot of the bad year and using it right now, and you move forward from there. You're going to have those kind of years, and it's good. It kind of opens it up, but at the same time, my desire is extremely high.
And what about public courses? What are Stephen's favorite Alberta courses?
Yeah, I guess you go Silvertip will be one. Stewart Creek will be another one in Canmore that we can play. Banff has to fall in there, obviously, because it's public. Yeah. Most of the mountain golf courses that we play are pretty much that way. Obviously, the good ones, the great ones in Canada are all private now, which is unfortunate. The general public don't get to play them, but no, they have a few. I think that's probably something we need to have more of. Better public golf courses and give the opportunity for the general public to play.
Here are the top golf courses in Alberta. In first place, it's the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. At number 2, it's the Fairmont Banff Springs, site of this year's TELUS World Skins game. At number 3, it's Stewart Creek. In fourth place is Wolf Creek's Old Course. In fifth place, it's Kananaskis Country, the Mount Kidd Course. And at number 6, the other one in Kananaskis Country, Mount Lorette. At number 7, it's the Links of Glen Eagles. At 8th, Heritage Point, the Desert and Heritage Course is in Calgary. Number 9 is Northern Bear. In 10th spot, it's Paradise Canyon in Lethbridge, Alberta. Number 11 is Scirocco. At 12th spot, it's Innisfail, the Aspen and Hazelwood Nines. In 13, it's Silvertip. At 14, The Ranch. And at 15, it's the other Wolf Creek course, the Lynx course. Back to Jason Logan and Robert Thompson for more analysis.
Well, undoubtedly, Alberta has some of the most spectacular golf courses in Canada, and we will get into some more detail on a few of those a little bit later. But Robert, as I did with British Columbia, I want to ask you off the top, when you think about public golf in Alberta, what comes to mind?
Well, really, I think you're talking about the separation between the golf courses that are an hour or two north of Calgary, sometimes more, that are built into the mountains with really dramatic topography, and then, you know, a handful of golf courses in and around more urban centers that maybe aren't as dramatic in terms of the design, but perhaps garner more public attention because they're a little bit more cost effective.
Well, one of those mountain courses, and you heard Stephen Ames talk about it, is Stewart Creek, a very good golf course, one that I've played, one that I like a lot, and one that has been climbing the top 100 ranking and the provincial ranking for some time now. Give us a little more insight on the Stewart Creek.
Well, Stewart Creek, once again, built in a mountain just near Canmore. Gary Browning designer, a designer from the Calgary area, perhaps isn't as well known in sort of central Canada because he's built almost specifically or exclusively in Alberta. A great golf course, really not walkable, but you know, with topography that doesn't get too dramatic. All the holes kind of come together quite nicely. It's a great golf course. Interesting, there's a second golf course that Gary's designed there, all ready to go, being maintained, but sort of stuck in limbo as it's got some financial issues.
Well, if it does open, maybe it'll crack the rankings as well. And when Canadians think about Alberta, they think about the Rocky Mountains, golfers or non-golfers, but there are some courses on this ranking that are not mountain golf courses that are very highly acclaimed. Talk about two of them.
Well, Ron Garl's Heritage Point, just outside Calgary, has long been a favorite of Calgary area golfers because it's cost-effective, built on interesting land, 27 holes, really interesting facility. The other one that comes to mind is the Ponoka, Alberta's Wolf Creek, which was long a favorite on the Canadian Tour, interestingly, and they've added 18 holes there. Designed by Rod Whitman, perhaps the best unknown golf architect in Canada. Soon I think that'll change, but once again, a great golf facility with two very different 18s.
Well, a bit of a teaser for you. Robert has actually written a full-length profile on Rod Whitman that will appear in the Best Public Golf Course issue, and you can see that when you pick it up on newsstands shortly. Okay, Robert, we've saved the best for last when it comes to Alberta golf. Alberta Golf, Stanley Thompson, Jasper Park, and Banff Springs. 1 and 2 on this ranking and right next to each other in last time's top 100. And I think one of the great grill room conversations that you can have among any golfer who's played both is which one is better. Myself, I prefer Jasper. These are two courses that are fantastic, and it's great to compare and contrast. I'll leave it to you. What do you prefer, and break them down?
I actually am with you. I prefer Jasper. It's perhaps a little bit more intimate, a little bit more true to the initial Stanley Thompson design. That said, Banff is perhaps the more dramatic golf course. It's probably the one more people are going to see, with really dramatic bunkering, a spectacular location, easily walkable, a great golf course. You know, you could go either way depending on your likes and dislikes, but I think I'm with you. I prefer Jasper just by a hair.
Well, two great Thompson courses, and two that really helped establish his legacy for some of the other stuff he did across Canada.
Before we go to break, let's hear from Adam Hadwin on his favorite public course.
Dakota Dunes is actually a pretty nice little public course out in Saskatoon there. That's fun. You know, it's different. You know, it's completely link style. It's built on the rolling hills out there. You've got some elevation change, and the course is framed really nicely. You know, you get the green grass, and then you got the long hay stuff that you don't want to be in. And it's you know, it's just a good test of golf. It's, you know, the wind's always up there. And if it isn't, you know, it's a fairly easy golf course, but if the wind does get up, it's a fun golf course to play.
Before we head to our next region, which is Saskatchewan and Manitoba, we wanted to talk to someone who creates these golf courses, creates public facilities. It's Graham Cook, who's an architect who's designed courses really in almost every province and every region in this country and internationally as well. We asked him things like, is it different building a course for public players than private facilities? We talked to him and he came up with some very interesting answers. Here's a little chat with Graham Cook. Graham Cook's architectural portfolio includes such famed courses as Crown Isle, Shadow Mountain, Piper's Heath, and top Saskatchewan course, Dakota Dunes. He is one of Canada's leading golf course architects, a reputation for which he's thankful.
It really is something special to be a Canadian, and in this industry that I have chosen. Like, I opened a golf business in Vancouver just because I wanted an office there, and it was great. I ended up doing so many, you know, really exciting projects in all sorts of different mountain settings and such in that beautiful province, and consequently, you know, working in the prairies and in the Maritimes. Yeah, it's a huge canvas, and I've been lucky to have managed to find some wonderful opportunities to paint on, so to speak.
Surprisingly enough, there are some subtle differences between designing public courses and a private facility.
Well, I think there's certain things, you know, you have to make sure that you create some excitement in the green complexes, because of a private club, and they're going to get pretty accustomed to it, and they're going to carry that local knowledge, and if they want to beat up on their guests and make some money, then you should give some character into the green complexes that they can understand and get appreciative over time. But no, I mean, a public course, sometimes you could soften out a little bit more, and that'll help the pace of play. But there is certain subtleties that are involved with designing private to public. I'm not designing golf courses for the Canadian Open. I'm designing golf courses for the clientele. And if they go there and have a good time, and it's a fair challenge for them, then I've done my job.
When designing courses for the public, Cook has one simple goal in mind: build a course that golfers will enjoy playing.
Well, I've done a number of public golf courses. You don't see too many private golf courses built anymore. So, they're all, you know, the one I just did in Cape Breton called the Lakes is a brand new golf course, and I know the public, when it comes there, are going to enjoy these golf courses, and that's kind of my philosophy.
As the game of golf grows, so too does the philosophy behind the architectural design.
I think it's important to explore what's out there in the industry. We're all sort of in a group and we look at what each other does. But, you know, golf is still changing. I mean, there's the technology is moving forward still. We're under a lot more review, and we need to be, with regard to environmental restraints and how a golf course should be looked upon. And I like to change styles just because it gives me a different perspective and outlook on the lands that I look at. The land always tells you something, and you know, it's not. I don't think it's wise to just set one style and just keep trying to force it on the land.
The top public facilities in Saskatchewan. At number 1, it's Dakota Dunes, site of the Canadian Tour stop. At number 2, it's Waskesiu. In third spot, it's one of the busiest courses in the country, Cook Municipal. In fourth spot, it's North Battleford. 5 is Elk Ridge, the Tamarack and Aspen Nines. Here are the top golf courses in Manitoba. Number 1 is Falcon Lake. Number 2 is Clear Lake. At number 3, it's the links at Quarry Oaks, the Quarry and Desert Nines. At number 4, it's Hecla. And number 5 is Granite Hills.
You heard Graham Cook talk about his golf course design career, and I think, Robert, one of the best courses that he's done, along with his design partner Wayne Carleton, is Dakota Dunes in Saskatoon, which is ranked number 1 as far as public golf goes in Saskatchewan. I know it's a favorite of a lot of Canadian Tour players. I know it's a favorite of yours. Tell us about it.
Well, this is one of the great natural sites in all of Canada, built on these kind of rugged inland dunes, a really sandy site, really dramatic looking because of that. The sand's an interesting color and it sort of rolls over these wild dunes and in and out of them. It's such a neat place to play, and it is really a great design.
Well, I believe Carleton actually said it. There couldn't be a better spot for a golf course in all of Canada, and he would know. He did some great work there along with Graham Cook. Another guy that had a lot of great natural sites to work with in his career, and we've already spoken about him on this show, is Stanley Thompson. And it's kind of fascinating here of what Stanley Thompson did, or maybe didn't do, in Manitoba and Saskatchewan with Clear Lake and Waskesiu. What's the story there?
You know, a lot of golf courses have some attribution to Stanley Thompson. Whether he worked there or not is the bigger question. You see at a place like Waskesiu, their club history talks about their affiliation with Thompson, but Jim Barkley's history on Stanley Thompson, his biography on the designer, suggests that maybe Thompson wasn't there. Needless to say, Waskesiu is truly one of the coolest golf courses you're going to play, with really plunging wild fairways, you know, maybe akin to what you see at Highlands Links, but basically nowhere else in the country.
Well, one of the great things about golf in the prairies is its affordability, and there's not too many big centers across Canada where you can go just a bit outside of the city and find really affordable golf. Winnipeg, I think, is one of the exceptions to that rule.
Well, and the links at Quarry Oaks, which is a Les Berber design about a half hour outside of Winnipeg, is a great example of that. Built on, as you might guess, a quarry site. It's a really interesting design. It allows you to play golf for, you know, not having to bang your credit card too badly. You know, cost effective, great golf, which is really what the best public golf in Canada is about.
The rules of golf, helping you understand. Brought to you by BDO Chartered Accountants and Advisors. More than you think.
Okay, Brent, I'm going to try and putt this one. This is a long putt, 30, 35, 40 feet maybe. Whoa. Now, I just hit the ball, but I didn't really mean to. Will you sort of forgive me, or what do I have to do here?
I forgive you, but unfortunately the rules won't forgive you. It's a pretty common occurrence. People oftentimes look at the hole to try to warm up and gauge the distance. What you've done here is you've breached Rule 18.2, which is the player causing the ball to move. And what you're going to need to do is put that back. It wasn't a stroke, because again, the definition of stroke is the forward movement of the club with the intention of striking the ball. And like you said, there was no intent there, so it's not a stroke. It's going to cost you a penalty stroke. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace that ball back on that spot, and it's a one-stroke penalty.
Now, a few years ago, Davis Love was involved in something like that where he did it, but he didn't replace it. So what happens if you hit it from where you left the ball?
A lot of people will automatically think that that's the right ruling. Unfortunately, that's going to cost you 2 strokes under the rules. The ball needs to be replaced.
Wow, and that one cost him big time because he went on to sign an incorrect scorecard and got DQ'd. That's a big whoops. This one's only a small whoops. Thanks to you, you saved me. There's what happens if you hit one of those little unfortunate ones. After this break, we'll head to Ontario. But first, let's hear from Brad Fritsch and his opinion of course design.
What do you look for in a public golf course, or what do you think architects should be striving for in this day and age? Because it just seems like the thing to do is design a 7,500-yard course and charge $180, which seems ridiculous. Like, what would you like to see in a public golf course?
Yeah, conservation of land, really. They don't have to make this big gargantuan golf course, like you said, 7,500 yards. That caters to about, 0.5% of the golfing population. I think they make golf courses too hard for the average player. I think they can, if you just provide a good mix of par 3s and 4s, where you don't have to hit the same club off every tee and you don't have to hit the same club on every par 3, I think the public likes that. And you know, these new golf courses that pop up around, you know, let's say Toronto, the really big ones that you were talking about, I don't see how anyone can get around in, you know, five and a half hours. So the enjoyment might be taken out a little bit of the general public. Dakota Dunes in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It's a great new golf course designed by a friend of mine, Graham Cook, and I think he did a really good job with the land. It's just a lot of fun to play. The fairways are generous enough where the average player can, you know, get it around without too much problem.
Well, Ontario has the most golf courses of any province in the country, all the way from Windsor in the south up to Kenora and the Manitoba border up in the northwest. And there are golf courses of every shape, size, and description. That made it very tough to come up with this list of the best public facilities in Ontario. In top spot, it's Muskoka Bay. Number 2, just north of the city of Toronto, it's Eagle's Nest. In number 3, it's Rocky Crest. The 4th best facility is Biguin Island. Osprey Valley, the Heathlands course, comes in at number 5. In number 6, it's Copper Creek. At 7, The Ridge at Manitou. The scene of so many great Canadian Open championships is number 8, Glen Abbey. Ron Garl designed Taboo at number 9. In 10, it's out to Owen Sound for Cobble Beach. At 11, it's Deerhurst Highlands, the Highlands course. Another Osprey Valley course, this time Hoot, comes in at 12. In eastern Ontario, near Belleville, it's Black Bear Ridge at number 13. At number 14, it's Angus Glen, the South course. At 15, it's Tarandawa. 16, it's down to Niagara Falls for the historic Stanley Thompson design Whirlpool. In 17th spot, it's Piper's Heath. The 18th best public facility in Ontario is King's Forest. At 19, it's the course known for the replica holes, Wooden Sticks. And at 20, it's the club at Bondhead, the South course. Back to Jason Logan and Robert Thompson for more analysis.
Robert, one of the more popular regions in Ontario for tourists and cottagers, and really one of the more popular regions in all of Canada, is the Muskokas. And there are 5 public golf courses in Muskoka that have made Ontario's top 20. And your estimation, is the golf there worthy of having 5 on this list?
Well, I think you really have 5 different types of golf courses. You have something like Biguin Island, which is unique, being, it's on an island. You take a ferry out to the golf course. It doesn't perhaps have as much rock in the fairway in different places of the golf course as some of the others. So I think you really have 5 sort of distinct golf courses. At the number 1 spot, obviously being Muskoka Bay near Gravenhurst, which is as dramatic a golf course as you're going to find in the country. A really spectacular place to play golf, but also very different than the others on the list, like Deerhurst or Taboo, or as we mentioned, Biguin Island.
Biguin Island, by the way, is private some of the year, but there's lots of opportunity to play Biguin Island, and I think it's certainly something you should pony up the cash for because it is a really unique experience. Earlier in the show off the top, I talked about why I was here and why we're here at Osprey Valley. And you've seen now that Osprey Valley, which is a 54-hole complex just north of Toronto, has 2 golf courses on the top 20 in Ontario public golf. You, Robert, as am I, am a big fan of this facility. Just talk about it in general.
We have 54 holes here. You have 3 very different golf courses. The initial golf course, the Heathland, sort of mirrors an English links. You have a wasteland course, which is where we're standing at the moment, which looks like maybe something out of Pine Valley with really rugged wild bunkering. And you have a parkland course, which is maybe a bit more traditional in that sense. These are 3 great golf courses. You can have a blast playing here all day if you want. There perhaps is, I'd argue that there's no better 36-hole punch in Canada. And I think the parkland course, which maybe doesn't get as much affection, is one of the most underrated golf courses in Canada.
Well, I can tell you from kind of putting together the list that the parkland was close to making the top 20, and that certainly would have been a story if all 3 courses, all 3 of which were designed by Doug Carrick, by the way, had to crack this list. Robert, one of the things we have to talk about in Ontario is affordability, because certainly in and around Toronto, there's a lot of high-priced public golf courses, and you will have seen this on the list, places that'll cost you more than $100 to play in Toronto and in Muskoka. That being said, though, there is a lot of good affordable golf courses in this province.
Well, and one of my favorites, and I know you really have a lot of affection for it too, is Tarrandow, about half hour outside of London. This is a Martin Hawtrey golf course. You play it for less than $50. I'd argue that there is probably no better value in Canada, arguably, than this golf course. It's one I try to play whenever I'm going down that area. You also have a couple of interesting municipal golf courses in Whirlpool down Niagara Falls. We talked about Stanley Thompson a lot. This is another one late in his career, a great golf course. And Kings Forest, which is a municipal golf course, which is one of I think the first municipal golf courses to crack the actual SCOREGolf Top 100. Really 3 golf courses that aren't going to break your bankroll.
I would agree with that. I would agree with all 3. I would also just slip in Black Bear Ridge in there, which has done well in recent rankings, a homemade design by owner Brian McGee.
When we come back, we'll look at Quebec's top courses, but first, Chris Barilla talks about his top BC courses.
Growing up here, it's nice, especially up in the interior. There's a lot of good golf. I spent a lot of time Predator Ridge up in Vernon growing up. Down here in the mainland, I played Westwood Plateau a few times. Really enjoyed that. And there's a lot of good golf coming up in the interior, up in the Okanagan. Canoe Creek, and they're building a lot of golf. So there's a lot to be done. You can definitely spend some time.
Quebec has an interesting stat. There are more left-handed golfers in that province than anywhere else in not only Canada, but really in the world. Now, I don't know if that means there are more left-handed golf courses there, but we found the best public golf courses, left-handed or right-handed, and here's our list. The top public courses in Quebec. At number 1, it's the Fred Couples designed Le Maître. Number 2, Le Géant. In third spot, also up in Mont-Tremblant area, Le Diable. The Falcon comes in 4th spot. And in 5th, it's Ile de Montréal, the Ireland course. Number 6, Le Sorcier. Number 7, Le Manoir Richelieu. 8th is the Fairmont Chateau Montebello. At 9 is Grey Rock's La Bête course. And the 10th course in Quebec, Le Quatre Domaines, number 2.
Robert, earlier we talked about Ontario's Muskoka region, which is a fantastic place to play golf. One of the best spots and one of the most visited spots in Quebec is Mont-Tremblant. Compare Tremblant to Muskoka.
Well, I think one of the differences is just in terms of depth. Muskoka tends to have more golf courses in a more condensed area, but Tremblant really has 3 golf courses you can play that are very actually affordable to play when compared to Muskoka. I'm particularly a fan of Le Diable, which is a Hertz and Fry design, a really neat golf course with red sand and a dramatic hillside setting.
Well, Tremblant is most certainly one of the best resorts in Canada, but there are some other resorts in Quebec, a lot of great resorts in Quebec actually, a couple of them Fairmont properties.
Well, Fairmont's Manoir Richelieu used to be a Herbert Strong design. It was rebuilt in recent years by Daryl Huxham on a really fantastic side of a hill overlooking the St. Lawrence. It's a really an unbelievable spot. The other one I have a lot of affection for is Chateau Montebello, which is another Stanley Thompson design. This one's in real need of some tender loving care, perhaps a restoration by somebody, but still a lot of fun with really plunging fairways and some really neat shots.
Okay, so some great cities to visit in Quebec. Quebec City, obviously the provincial capital, in Montreal, I think a favorite city of many who go to that area. And if you're in Montreal, there's a neat course you can play, Ile de Montréal, the Ireland course there, the links course there. What do you know about that?
Well, this is a Pat Ruddy design. Pat Ruddy being an Irish golf writer turned architect who is best known for the European Club outside of Dublin, which is in the world top 100. This is a really tough golf course, but I think it's true to that kind of links notion, and Ruddy really likes to beat players up, so I guess you have to be a bit of a masochist to enjoy this one.
Well, it's a writer turned architect. I can't speak for Robert, but I can tell you I won't be designing any golf courses soon. I'm not sure if you will or not. Maybe you might collaborate with somebody, but good on Mr. Ruddy.
Moments in Time, brought to you by Bulova, makers of Precisionist, the world's most accurate watch, with a continuously sweeping second hand.
This week on the Bulova Moment in Time, we look at redemption. Redemption for a veteran player who gave away a tournament a week earlier, came back, and won for the first time in 5 years. That player, Jason, David Toms.
David Toms at the Crowne Plaza Invitational, and just the week before, as you mentioned, he let go of the Players' Championship when he made a probably a terrible decision on the 16th hole, and they missed a short putt in the playoff. And he really had every reason to be down in the dumps, but he said after that he felt his game was so good that he was gonna win again. And then he goes out and he wins the very next week. Almost let it go, had a big shot and kind of started struggling with that, but typical David Toms, he holes out with a wedge for eagle. That's always been the bread and butter of his game, and it really came through for him again at the Crown Plaza.
Just imagine if he'd used that wedge a week earlier in the Players' Championship.
Would have had a bigger check.
That's right. And a good performance, of course, spurred on by his son, who's become an active golfer and has really encouraged Dad to play a little more and play a little better, and he did that at the Crown Plaza. Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland are all that are left after this break. Well, there's a lot of great things to love about Atlantic Canada. Of course, there's lobster, there's great beaches. It's a great place to go for a vacation. But for me, it means great golf, and there is some fantastic public facilities, some of the best in the country, in fact, some of the best in the world in Atlantic Canada. Let's have a look at that region right now. The top public facilities in New Brunswick. At number 1 in St. Andrews by the Sea, it's the famed Algonquin Golf Course, originally designed by Stanley Thompson and given a makeover by Thomas McBroom. At number 2, it's Kingswood Park. Number 3 is Gowan Brae. At number 4, it's Fox Creek. And coming in at number 5, it's Rhys Jones' first design in Canada, Royal Oaks. The top course is in Prince Edward Island. At number 1, no surprise, the Tom McBroom designed the links at Crowbush Cove. In second place, it's Dunderave. At 3, Brudenell River. In fourth spot, Mill River, scene of the Big Break Prince Edward Island program. And number 5, it's the historic Green Gables, originally designed by Stanley Thompson and recently updated by Thomas McBroom.
Robert, maybe one of the provinces in Canada that doesn't get talked enough about when it comes to golf is New Brunswick, and maybe it should, because there's some pretty solid golf in that province, starting right on the water with the Algonquin.
Well, the Algonquin was an old Donald Ross golf course that was redesigned in recent years by Thomas McBroom. Has a couple of really neat holes right on the water. Certainly a lot of fun to play, very resorty. You know, I would think it would be one of those courses everybody would enjoy regardless of your abilities.
Well, Algonquin's not the only good golf course in New Brunswick. One that you quite like, Fox Creek.
Fox Creek, a Graham Cook, Daryl Huxham design, just inside, or just in an urban setting in Dieppe, just outside Moncton, is a really neat golf course. Now it is in a, you know, there are houses that surround it and it has that sort of flavor to it, but it actually has fairly wide playing corridors, and I had a great time when I was there.
Okay, one of the best destinations in Canada is the tiny province of PEI because it's such a small place with so many good golf courses, starting at the top with links at Crowbush Cove.
Links at Crowbush Cove is probably best known, I would say not as much for the front nine, but for the back nine where the holes get into the dunes and near the ocean. And truly in Canada, at least to this point, there really isn't anything like it. But really a golf course I think that appeals more to me is Dunderave, the nearby golf course done by Herdson Fry, the American firm. Red dramatic bunkers, placed down by a river, some really neat variation in shot values and holes. I've always had a great time playing it. It's the one I go back to play when I'm in Prince Edward Island.
And one of the neater golf experiences maybe in all of Canada, and nice to see it crack the list in PEI, the course at Green Gables.
Probably one of the more underrated golf courses in Canada. Initially a Stanley Thompson golf course, recently redesigned by Thomas McBroom. It's sort of old-fashioned fun. There were a couple of holes that used to play in the dunes that have disappeared over time, but the rest of it's delightful, and I think that the redesign or the renovation of this has been really well done.
Old-fashioned fun, I like that, because on PEI you can have a lot of old-fashioned fun as well.
Here are the top public facilities for Nova Scotia. Number 1 is Stanley Thompson's Great Highlands Links. At number 2, it's Fox Harbour, the course created by Ron Joyce of Tim Hortons fame. Number 3 is the beautiful Bell Bay overlooking Bredor Lakes. At 4, it's Northumberland Links. And number 5 is the famed Digby Pines Resort Course. The top golf courses in Newfoundland. At number 1, it's Humber Valley. Number 2 is Twin Rivers. The third best public course in Newfoundland is the Wilds at Salmonier River. Number 4, it's Pippi Park, Admiral's Green. And number 5 is Grand Falls.
Robert, one of the most beautiful and breathtaking provinces in this country is undoubtedly Newfoundland, which has some really good public golf courses, some really dramatic landscapes to work with out there. One that came on board recently is Humber Valley. I know it's really high on your list of places to play in this country.
There's an argument that can be made that this is Doug Carrick's best design in Canada. Unfortunately, it's a little ways from Deer Lake, so not a lot of people have gotten to see it yet, but set once again in sort of a river valley with some dramatic, stunning elevation changes. This is a fantastic golf course. Unfortunately, the resort has struggled a little bit, has some financial issues, but the golf course is basically without parallel in that part of the country.
Now, one that's perhaps a little bit underrated, as you told me, I haven't seen it, but you said it's one of the most affordable places in all of Canada, is Twin Rivers.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this has been on the SCOREGolf top 100, you know, the entire list with the private as well. It's unfortunate not a lot of people get there to see it, but this is 9 holes of Robbie Robinson, 9 holes of Doug Carrick, a great golf course. Once again, it's really built on the site, and this has a river running through it. It has a finishing hole with a waterfall where you play a par 3 over the waterfall. Great fun. I wish more people would see this one.
Well, one more note on Humber Valley. Despite the resort troubles out there, when that happened, the price dropped. And it used to be sort of closed to Newfoundland residents. That's no longer the case. So if you're out in Newfoundland watching, $80 to play Humber Valley is definitely one of the best values in the country.
Value, yeah.
Okay, moving over to Nova Scotia, and we have to start with the quintessential public golf course in Canada, and that is Highlands Links. Stanley Thompson's great Highlands Links, his Oceans and Mountain course. Now, Highlands Links has gone through some conditioning issues over the year, and it's sort of slipped a little bit on the top 100 because of that, but there is some work being done out there. Can you give us an update on that?
Golf architect Ian Andrew has been part of a really ambitious restoration plan to return the bunkers, take a lot of trees out to bring vistas back into effect. I've been there just recently, just last month. The work is really quite staggering in scope, and it's really opening the golf course up to what Thompson envisioned when that was built in the late 1930s.
Well, one of the great things about Highlands Links is it's right off the Cabot Trail, and you can take that around the island and hit places like Belle Bay and Le Portage, a really great place to golf on Cape Breton. Moving to the mainland of Nova Scotia there, a couple of cracked the top 5. Tell us about those.
Well, there's Fox Harbour, which is the golf course owned by former Tim Hortons owner, Ron Joyce. It's sort of his private enclave with a runway and everything you get with that kind of the wealth that Ron has. However, if I have the choice, I just drive up the street and go play Northumberland Links, which is really cost effective, really affordable. Anne Murray's house just up the street, might see her playing there. You play a couple holes right on the ocean. Basically as good as it gets for less than $50.
Well, Anne Murray's a really good golfer too, so you might want to take some strokes for her if you do happen to get paired up on the golf course. Just a note on Ron Joyce's place at Fox Harbour. It is private, but they are opening it up, and resort guests are welcome to stay and play the course, so that's a bonus there. Now, we won't leave Nova Scotia before going back to Cape Breton to talk about a new course coming on board, and there isn't many new courses coming on board in Canada in this time right now, but Cabot Links is one. It's received a lot of hype both in this country and the United States and worldwide, in fact. Is the hype going to be worth it, Robert?
There's an argument to be made, and I must admit I've only played 10 holes there because that's all they had open when I was there recently, that this is the best golf course in Canada. Public-private, hands down. This is going to be probably priced next year when it fully opens in and around $100, and for $100 you're going to get a seaside link experience probably only rivaled in North America by Bandon Dunes, which of course, not ironically, but is Mike Kaiser, the owner of Bandon Dunes, is a co-owner of Cabot Links. Other than that, you're gonna have to fly to Glasgow or something to play something like this. 18 holes, all with ocean views, playing wild and rugged with firm and fast fairways, fescue all the way around. This is as good as it gets.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people just heard you talking about Cabot Links and are already envious that you've got out to play 10 of its holes so far. I want to thank you, Robert, for joining us on this program. And Robert just talked about Cabot Links, and once again, I will mention that Rod Whitman, who designed that course, is featured by Robert in our Best Public Courses magazine that will be on newsstands very soon.
Swing School, lessons to help you play better golf.
Hi, my name is Dale Machesty. I'm a CPGA golf professional here at the Salmon Arm Golf Club in beautiful Salmon Arm, British Columbia. I'm here today to talk to you how you can be more consistent and have better distance control with our pitch shots. Pitch shot is anything just over about 15 yards, just under a full wedge. First thing we're going to look at is our setup with a pitch shot. We set up like we would a normal wedge shot. Okay. The only thing we're going to change is we're going to flare open our front foot from a neutral stance to just about 30 degrees. From there, we want to change our ball position from middle to about an inch or two behind the center of our stance, just inside that back heel. Okay, and then we want to make sure our hands are pressed forward so that the butt of the club is pointed at our left hip. The next thing we're going to look at is we want to look at our backswing. Okay, we want to take it back to 2 lengths. The first one being back to 7 o'clock and the second one being back to 9 o'clock. From there, we want to swing down, scuffing the ground to a 3/4 finish. I'll give you an example of the 7 o'clock swing. Ball back in our stance, back to 7 o'clock, through to a 3/4 finish, and the same thing with a 9 o'clock swing. Back to 9 o'clock, through to a 3/4 finish. If we can practice these 2 swings with each one of our wedges, we'll become more, have better distance control, be more consistent with those awkward pitch shots approaching the greens.
Coming up, we'll wrap up this week's show.
Week Speaks is brought to you by Bushnell, makers of the new hybrid laser GPS rangefinder.
You know, there's a misconception about golf that it's a rich man's sport and all the people who play belong to private clubs. You want to know the truth? Less than 10% of the people who play golf in this country are members at golf clubs. The vast majority are people who go out, drop the money on the counter, and tee off right on the first tee. They are public course players. And what lucky people they are in some respects, because some of the best known golf courses in this country, some of the ones that people around the world only know about in Canada, are public tracks. Fairmont Banff Springs, Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge, Crowbush Cove, Highlands Links, you can go on and on. But you know, you can go to every community in Canada just about and find a public golf course. You can find a municipal track or maybe a 9-hole course or maybe a small course where someone's just learning how to play. And that's the backbone of golf. Public golf courses are the backbone of golf in this country. After all, public golf courses are where most of us learned how to play. They're where fathers and sons go out and mothers and daughters, where families can go out. You get 4 hours under the sun on a green playground. Where else can you get that these days? And for a pretty reasonable price in most places. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our show. I hope you've maybe been inspired by our list to go out and try one of those courses that you haven't played before, or maybe you found an old favorite that you want to go out and revisit. Playing public golf courses is a treat in this country. You can play them from coast to coast and always enjoy yourself. That's it for this edition of Score Golf TV. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Score Golf on TSN, the voice of Canadian golf. Score Golf is powered by Volkswagen. From one good drive to another. Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Feed your wild side. Via Rail Canada, proud sponsor of golf in Canada.